G'day guys, I've been playing a bit of Palia in recent weeks. It's a new cozy MMO where you do things like farming, fishing, cooking, building your house and all the things you'd expect in a Stardew Valley type of game, but with other players running around in the same world. And it's been enjoyable for the most part, but it does have some rather sizable issues that I want to talk about today. It is still in beta, so I will give things like graphical issues and frame drops a pass for now, but there are much deeper flaws in the game, and I worry if the devs continue down this path without addressing these flaws, this game that I still have a lot of hope for will just join the scrap heap of failed titles. Now, the first and probably most important issue is that the game does not respect your time whatsoever. Being an online game, tasks are tied to real time instead of game time, so if you want your potatoes to grow, it will take real hours to see the result, whereas in a game like Stardew Valley, you could sleep to pass the time if you wanted to. And this is not necessarily a problem on its own. You can have real-time mechanics and do them well, but you need to balance this by having a fair amount of different tasks to keep the player occupied. If you've hit a point where you're waiting on one task to complete, you should be able to move over to another task to make progress there. Unfortunately, pretty much all of the tasks required to progress in the game take ages, and you're left with mundane and repetitive resource gathering to fill in the time. It gives the impression that the developers are holding the player back in an attempt to stop them getting through the content too quickly. This is something you also notice with skills in the game. There are 8 skills you can build up by performing everyday activities like hunting, mining, chopping trees, etc. And researching new tools and crafting stations are often tied behind reaching a certain level. Now, these levels require a fairly intensive grind, especially if you're playing solo. To get from fishing level 5 to level 6, for example, I had to catch upwards of 70 fish. I basically stood at the lake fishing for about an hour, which is not really my idea of fun, and I shudder to think of how much time I'd have to spend if I wanted to get to level 10 or beyond. And don't get me wrong, I'm a streamer. I could easily play this game like it was a full-time job, but playing a cozy game shouldn't feel like a full-time job. If you look at the research pathway for the skills, there are roughly 5 or 6 important unlocks for each. These are things that you need to make progress, get better resources, etc. But the amount of real time you need to put in to build up the levels doesn't really match with the reward, in my opinion. An easy solution would be to add more stuff. Give players multiple things to unlock per level and more ways to unlock them. Fishing isn't really my cup of tea, so it would be great if I could get fishing skill from collecting oysters on the beach or making crab pots, for example. It would be great if you could get some XP from refining resources as well, instead of only from the initial harvest. This could look like getting small amounts of XP from furnaces or worm farms. Again, this feels like an attempt to stop people from doing too much too quickly because there simply isn't that much to do in the game. Palia even actively limits the amount of machines you can build on your lot, so you can't snowball progress in that manner as easily. You're also limited to just 9 farm plots, for no real reason other than to hamper your ability to make money. And speaking of money, the economy is kind of fucked. Yeah, you expect things to be a little pricey in this kind of game, but when you combine it with the grind for skills and real-time gating of progression, it's quite egregious. An example of this is the storage box, which you can put on your lot to hold stuff you don't want to carry on you. You can place up to 8 of these on your lot to hold a maximum of 3,200 items. And that is not a lot. If you want to store more things, you'll need to upgrade to copper boxes for a measly 25,000 gold. Just to explain how much that is, if you had a full field of potatoes growing, and each of them only yielded gold quality crops, this would take almost 5 full harvests of the entire farm at 5 hours of growth time each, meaning about a full day of playtime. Sure, there are other ways of earning money besides farming, but there are also many other expensive items in the game. And again, I'm not saying you should be able to complete this game in 3 hours or anything, but to lock the player behind these arbitrary gates for no reason other than because the game is light on content feels a little unfair. And if we're talking about economy, why is there no player-driven economy in an MMO? Why can't you sell goods to other people? What if I was really proficient at cooking but hated fishing? I could buy someone else's fish and sell them my fish pies. To be perfectly honest, 90% of this game feels like a single player game, but with other people there sometimes. There are only really a few instances where having other people around is helpful, let alone even meaningful. In fact, other players are often more of a hindrance than a help. Since resources around the map are tied to the server instead of the client, you're frequently competing against other players for items, especially rare resources like Palia, which can get really frustrating when you have to keep running around the map checking if nodes have respawned, or even server hopping in the hope that the instance you load into hasn't been plundered yet. I played the game for 30 hours before I even saw a Pallium node because they had just never existed on servers I'd visited. And now that I know where they are, I get to join the cohort of players running around trying to snatch up every scrap of ore as it respawns. Great fun. And don't even get me started on the new Magi Market limited time event. I don't even know why there's a limited time event in a beta of all things, but it's just straight up trash. The main activity after you've completed the handful of boring fetch quests is a Charper scavenger hunt. You have to run around for 5 minutes gathering as many Charpers as you can and returning them to the pen. It sounds pretty simple. Unfortunately, you have to compete against a bunch of other players who are trying to do the same thing. This event quickly turns into a spawn camping, button mashing nightmare, and that was before you even look at the prizes on offer. In true Palia fashion, everything is ridiculously overpriced to the extent that you would need to play this game for every waking moment if you want even a chance of getting everything before the event ends. And would it be too much to ask for a bit of creativity in the prizes instead of just the same item but a different color? Truly one of the more bizarre events I've ever seen in a game. And I could go on and on complaining about boring quests or the lack of animals or premium pets and $50 outfits or the fucking awful climbing. Why is climbing so shit? I do want to look at the other side for a moment though. This game has a good framework. The town and the characters are great. Bahari Bay is full of amazing landscapes. The story is enough to be entertaining and should only get better. Even the monotony of the game, the repetitive tasks are still kind of enjoyable in some respect. I think I can speak for most players when I say that it's pretty easy to picture what this game could become. The potential is definitely there, but Palia, as young as it is at a crossroads. It's a little concerning that there is no mention of any kind of meaningful content coming in the foreseeable future beyond vague promises of activities and things to do. I sincerely hope that the market event was not one of these things to do, because if that's any indication of what to expect in this game, then people aren't going to be sticking around for very long. I'm hoping that this is just going to be a slow burn. Maybe development is going to take some time and I can come back to the game in a year or so and it will feel fuller. But I'm worried this might not be the case, and that by the time the game is actually done, there could be no one left playing it. It already seems that the devs are trying to keep people playing longer by any means possible, even at the expense of enjoyment. You'd think that a good game would be enough encouragement in and of itself. Free-to-play games live and die based on how well they can draw in and maintain casual players. There's always going to be hardcore players that have endless time and attention to devote to games like this, but no one wants to play an MMO without the M's. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the matter. Thank you for letting me rant for a bit. If you've played the game yourself, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, even if you disagree with any of the points I've made. You're also welcome to jump into my Discord. Maybe we can make some cakes together before that gets nerfed.